unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time. You guys have any friends that only call you when they're drunk? I have a few. Or they text when they're drunk, and I can tell because of the time, late in the evening, the things that they say, because what drunk person makes a call? It's like either two things. I love you, bro. Or let me just tell you where you're wrong. I got one of those the other day. An old friend of mine, he's the younger brother of a really good friend of mine. Not from childhood, but from my early days in Provo, Utah, at BYU. Part of a big family, big, complicated, crazy family of boys with really strong genes. They all look very similar. You can recognize them. Just a very super charming family. Kind of a magical family, really. They've had some terrible deaths in the family. One of the boys died a long time ago. There's a little bit of craziness that goes in the family, Got hooked on drugs and became a street person. He died. And then another one of the most charming, most magical creatures, died of a fentanyl overdose just last year. He wouldn't have died. Without fentanyl, he wouldn't have died. Anyway, just a lot of drama, some schizophrenia in the family, but just, I'd call them a magical family. There's a certain charm about their entire family that's just undeniable, But anyway, this friend of mine, he was a guy that I kind of got out of Mormonism with him. We were both getting out of Mormonism at the same time. He was going through a divorce, and I was just kind of dropping the church. I read a couple of chapters of No Man Knows My History, a biography of Joseph Smith, and it all just made sense. I was like, oh, I get it. This biography makes a hell of a lot more sense than the fantastical one I was given all my life, But there was a couple people. Another friend that was kind of getting out of the church with me at the same time was a gay friend of mine that I mentioned in the last recording. And so he'd come over. Both these guys would come over and would hang out along with another guy who ended up dating one of my sisters. But we'd come over and we'd sit on my porch in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we'd eat yogurts that were past the expiration date that I'd buy from this local center that sold like really cheap things, just like a day out of date. And you could buy a whole flat of yogurt, for like 99 cents. So my fridge was always full of them. And these guys would just come along, we'd have yogurts, and also I had a Coke machine that was stocked with beer. Even though I didn't drink beer, I'd put beer in there for them. And they'd buy beer out of my Coke machine. And we'd sit around on the porch, all of us having been Mormons and raised Mormon, and we'd just be blasphemous and kind of just test the limits and realize that lightning wasn't actually striking us like we thought. And we had a good old time just talking about coming to terms with, the good things about Mormonism versus the crazy shit. And of course, because we were going in the blasphemy direction and having a good time, we probably weren't being as fair as we might. And I can only speak for myself, but a lot of resentment came up because, like, when I read that book, No Man Knows My History, and I read a very logical explanation of Joseph Smith's timeline, the official one by the Mormon Church that was constructed over years and years to make him into kind of a folk hero. Think of the chopping down the cherry tree. Was that George Washington or Abe Lincoln? I can never forget. Abe Lincoln can never tell a lie. Who chopped down the cherry tree? Anyway, the lore. You can see the invention of the lore. Now that I'm older, I go, okay, lore has its place or whatever, but how about just telling me the truth? How about not crafting a story, giving it to me as if it's the truth when it's not? Why don't you give me the details? Really tell me what happened around Carthage jail. Was Joseph Smith just martyred because he was a prophet, or were there some debts that he was in trouble? Did he get into some banking situations that weren't so great? Give me the whole story. Anyway, so a little gang of us would just sit around and be blasphemous and eat yogurt on the porch in Salt Lake City and trade stories. And I really felt for this one friend, the one that I'm starting this recording about, because I was a single guy. So it caused a lot of drama for me to get out of the Mormon church. But, like my mother disowned me for many years. She really just basically disowned me for the rest of my life up until, right before she died. She kind of tried to claw back and make amends, hoping that she'd go to heaven. I think her reasoning was that if she didn't get along with her son, she probably couldn't get into heaven. So, I don't want to be cynical, but that's kind of what it was. She wasn't reaching out to me for me, it was for her. But anyway, this friend of mine, he was going through a divorce because he was getting out of the church. And his wife, here's the weird thing, okay? The Mormon church, they say so much about families are forever, and it's all about family and family and family. And one of the things you got to know about Mormonism is that they believe in eternal marriage, which, by the way, doesn't sound that great to me. Like most people that I know that are married are kind of looking for a way out. Once the kids are all raised, they're like, okay, how can I get out of this? You've seen the old people that get divorced, right? And you think, why are you getting divorced now? Like my dad, up until the day he died, was drama about the marriage. And I'm sure his wife could probably say the same thing, I don't think I'm talking shit. I think anybody that's married understands this. Living with somebody is hard. So, but anyway, the Mormon church really emphasizes families are forever. They perform ceremonies in the temple where you're sealed for time and all eternity, But here's the thing. That only applies if you're a good boy. It's really, the family isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is that you're a good Mormon. And if you're not a good Mormon, well, unfortunately, the forces within the Mormon church will work and consult with your loved one and really recommend, well, you know what, you got to get away from that guy. Doesn't matter if he's a good father to his kids. Doesn't matter if he doesn't want to go to church, if he doesn't want to follow the commandments to a T, then they might not explicitly say it, but the pressure is to find a new husband that will abide by all the rules. So he was going through this, and I was seeing this in real time happen. He happened to live right around the corner from me. We were both restoring our houses at the same time, in the same kind of way, pulling plaster off the walls, exposing brick, downtown Salt Lake, older houses, over 100 years old. And it was nice to have him around just to kind of go through the same thing at the same time. But anyway, he was going through it harder than I was because he had a kid and his wife was basically being counseled to split up with him, And weirdly enough, I had been married. I got married once for 2 weeks because the first time I ever had sex, an offspring was created. But that's a totally different story. I've told it before, but So I was married for 2 weeks to the mother of that child, and I got a quick annulment or a quick divorce. I can't remember. I went for annulment, but because there was a kid, it had to be divorced. But his wife's father was my attorney. So that was even another weird, I guess, small town thing, even though Utah, Salt Lake City isn't really a small town. But so I was watching him just go through this. He's being counseled basically to split up his family, and he didn't have any interest in splitting up his family. He wanted the family to stay together, but the church and all the pressure and him wanting to get out of the church were, pressuring him to split up. And it was sad. And as I listened to him talk about it, one time I thought, I was sitting there on the porch eating one of these yogurts or potato salad too. Potato salad we got for cheap. But we're having a yogurt, and I'm saying, well, why don't you just not rock the boat? Is there a way you can just be quiet about your positions on Mormonism? Just kind of keep your yap shut, kind of ride it out, at least until your kids are grown, And he looked at me and he said, you know what, I thought about that. He said, but then I had a dream that I was on my deathbed and my children were around me. And I looked at them and they were basically strangers because they didn't know who I really was. I was never honest with them. He said, and it freaked me out. And that really hit me hard. I was like, oh shit, I can't believe I even suggested such a thing, such a powerful example. And I'm like, yeah, literally I felt ashamed that I even suggested, faking it. So anyway, that was really important. And he helped me. I bought, with my dad's money, I selected a house for him and his wife, and we were fixing it up like we were fixing up our houses, and he helped me and blah, blah, blah. And I wouldn't say we were fantastic friends. Like, I was more friends with his brother, and I was friends with him too, but the drinking thing, I wasn't drinking, he was drinking. There was a little bit of divide. He was really into psychedelic drugs. He had a lot of hippie-ish kind of ideas, right? Always wanted to go into the desert and live in a 12 by 12 shed and just, So a lot of ways why I didn't relate with him. He's a traveling guy, globetrotting, always, not the kind of guy you just see holding down a job, And that's kind of true with the whole family, They're not like 9 to 5 types. They don't have 9 to 5 genes. But anyway, over the years, I moved to San Francisco, and we still keep in contact every once in a while. When I go back to Salt Lake, I meet up with that same group of friends, and they've kind of all pursued a little bit more academic things, the big readers. And anyway, I've always maintained this thing of radical individualism. That's been my basic platform even before I left the church. Radical individualism, that the most important, crucial thing about life is the individual. That's the most important thing in society. Nothing comes higher than that, because if the individual has no value, then a million individuals also has no value. Either the individual is the most important thing, or individuals are disposable and you can just throw them into a meat grinder and who gives a shit? It's really that simple. If the individual isn't the most important thing, then all manner of hell breaks loose, So it's really the only option for me. Anyway, we're taking a long way around to get to this text message that I get the other night, which is drunk, obviously. And he goes, man, what happened to you? You used to be a radical individualist. Why have you gone so mainstream? mainstream me. It's just like, it's funny to hear it because maybe I can kind of understand it. He's still in Utah. And where he lives, there might be some people that share my views. There might be a couple Trump voters, But I'm not your typical Trump voter either. But where I'm from, I'm the only guy for blocks. If there's another guy, he ain't wearing a MAGA hat. You know what I mean? Anyway, so, but, he wanted to call, he wanted a phone call, and I was just like, I don't want to talk to you, you're drunk. And drunk people and sober people don't mix. Plus, it was one of those texts where it's just like, I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. I'm going to set you straight. And that's kind of what all of these drunk people do. Even if there's a hint that they're going to be nice, ultimately in the conversation, if you're not drunk and they're drunk, they're going to tell you where you're wrong or what you need. One of my drunk friends is just like, you need to drink. You need to drink. I was just like, look, dude, I drank for years, and I never really liked it. And I drunk dialed people and drunk texted people, and it was never good. Oh man, I do not miss waking up to that panic feeling of, oh shit, let me look at my phone. What did I text? Who did I call? What did I say? Having to read the text and just, oh man, I was just a pathetic, just resentful. I was that. What I'm talking about, I was I'm going to set you straight. I'm going to tell you the truth about you. I know how you are. Let me tell you what you're doing. Just awful behavior. Luckily, most of the people that I was texting and during that time were also drunk or on drugs or whatever. But so here's what I do now. I learned, last time I actually had a drink was probably years ago. I'll still have like a drink if I go to Thanksgiving and there's a family. I'll have a drink or glass of whatever just to loosen up. It's not like I swore off alcohol, but my thing with my interest in alcohol was always social. The only reason to drink was to get along with people. And if I'm not hanging out with people, I got zero reason to drink. Like none. I don't need to drink to hang out with squirrels and pigeons. I only need it. Drinking helps me be friendly when I'd normally be impatient and not want to talk to somebody. You know what I mean? If I have a drink, I can be like, okay. But it also gives me the fortitude to just leave, which I won't do if I'm not drinking. I'll just sit there and take the punishment of somebody's company. But anyway, so I don't answer when people dial drunk now. And I know who they are. I know which ones they are. Instead, I call them back when I know that they're not drunk. And then they usually don't answer. It works almost every time. It's just like, okay, I'm not going to answer you now, but I don't want you to think I don't want to talk to you because I do want to talk to you. I just don't want to talk to you when you're drunk. Call back at 2 p.m. the next day and they don't answer. But this friend of mine, he texts and he calls me and makes that accusation that I'm mainstream and I'm not an individualist anymore. And I wasn't going to let him get away with it. So the next day I called, but it was in the evening and he didn't answer, but he texted back, oh, I'm having dinner with friends, aka he's drinking again. But I'll call you when I'm not drinking, And I said, yeah, that's not going to happen. Another day goes by. So I decided I'm not going to let him get away with this, He accused me of not being a radical individualist anymore, and I want to know why. So I called him yesterday and I said, what's over, chit-chat, He answered. He had some friends coming over, getting ready for a barbecue as usual, because that's the kind of guy he is. Always. It's like anytime you call him, it's just like, just getting ready to have some steaks with some friends and on the. But I said, so what's the deal? How am I not a radical individualist anymore? And he was like, He goes, I kind of retract what I said. I was drunk and, you know. But it got into like the meat of things. And I knew it was about Trump. I didn't want to immediately descend into a conversation about Trump, but that's what it is. It's, people like this, if they see me supporting, they're used to me criticizing the president of the United States, no matter who it is, because up until Trump, every president that's ever come along has been not in line with my values, And I said to him, I just broke it down. I said, well, this is the first time there's an administration that actually is doing things or seems to be trying to do things that I've been wanting done for my entire life. My position has never been to just simply be anti the office. If somebody with your values gets into the office, then you hope they can use the office to do what you want them to do. And I was explaining that he's doing things that I want done. He's getting rid of the Department of Education, trying to. He's closing up borders, trying to. Just the whole litany. You go down the whole list. Cutting waste, getting rid of the government, making it smaller. At least he's trying to, or at least what he's representing. And more importantly, not wanting to get into World War III, trying to make war smaller, fewer, less death, blah, blah, blah. Everything I have wanted. Even the fact that he's an outsider. I've always said you should always have an outsider. You shouldn't have a career politician. It should be a guy that was successful in business. He just checks all the boxes. So I'm getting what I want. How is that? If what I want, if my favorite band goes mainstream, I don't stop liking them just because everybody else likes them. But here's the deal. This guy's a teacher, and he said, well, where we differ is you're the libertarian free market and I'm more of a socialist. And I said, of course you're a socialist. You've never really earned an honest dollar in your life. You're being paid with money that was stolen from the people. Your business is compulsory. Nobody has a choice of whether or not they can send their kid to school. The education is compulsory. You're in a business that has a monopoly. If people don't send their kids to you, somebody with a gun comes and takes them from them. I said, I like you. I love you. You're my friend. But I hate that it's a reality that you get to influence these kids. We got into the conversation about, he's defending himself. Well, I try to not do this, and I'm not political, and the kids don't know what my politics are. And, he's talking about Emerson, and I give a launch into a tirade about how reading might be the worst thing you can ever do because it's self-hypnosis, and that's the gateway to just allowing all kinds of crap into your imagination. And we're agreeing, but I just had to, what do you do? When somebody says they're a socialist, I'm just like, yeah, and that's bad. That's bad. It's bad that you are taking your paycheck is stolen from people. It's not willing. It'd be one thing if you were teaching at a private school. He goes, yeah, but I don't infuse my politics. I go, there's no way you can't. You're a human being. You had a problem with me. You sent me a drunk text. You don't think that you're infusing your idea of the world into these kids? Of course you are. You're nudging them by subversive means towards socialism. And I get why you're doing it. Your paycheck depends on it, your life. And not only that, but society has built you up to make you think that you're some kind of holy, the teachers, they're my kids. No, they're not your kids. Your kids aren't yours, because he was describing how I just like to, give the kids something that their parents can't. I go, that's right there. You think that that's a virtue. I think that's terrible. Sneaking in and giving them information that their parents would probably not give them. How is that a virtue? That's subversive. It's weird, But anyway, I don't know what you can do with that, When you have millions and millions of people, and this is a complication, this thing, we had a good first couple months just dreaming that Trump could just cut this. It was all these executive orders, but these bureaucrats are not going to go away quietly, And my friend, he's my friend, He's a nice person, a pretty good person. He's a good person, but also an evil person, just like you and me, If he can take the easy way, he'll take the easy way, We all have each time we make a choice, we can go, are we going to make a choice that's virtuous or a choice that isn't, And in my opinion, being part of the system that has destroyed our country, which is the education system, that has really led our country to the brink. Right now we have countless millions of people who have been slowly coddled into this attitude of entitlement, And I'm listening to him explain, I'm a communitarian, I'm not really a socialist. I'm like, look, we're all communitarians. We all like to have our community. The difference is most of us don't rely on stolen money. Stolen money. Most of us don't steal money from people who have to pay it or they go to jail and lose their families. And I'm having this frank conversation with him, and he's not stupid. He's hearing me, and he lives in Utah, so it's not like these things are foreign to him. He has to deal with it. That's the difference between talking to a liberal from a red state and a liberal from a blue state, is at least the liberals from the red state have been exposed to good human beings, many good human beings, who don't share their political views. And they know that. So there's balance. I'd much rather talk to a liberal from a red state. Not all, because some of them, there's another version of them too, where they just go crazy and switch the switch and they're completely hateful for every way they've been raised. They hate their parents. I was a little bit like that, even though I never went fully liberal. There's a certain amount of overcorrection and, oversteer where you treat people poorly, and I did that, But yeah, it's going to be a long road, to wean these people away. I could sense, he even said so much. He's like, my parents didn't really give me marketable skills and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, it's not their fault, Like I can blame my parents for a lot of the decisions I made. But really, it's easier to just go, well, I followed this and this and this. I thought Devo was great. I thought Tears for Fears was great. I thought these intellectuals were great. I thought this was great. And I was kind of lured away by the arts and the humanities. This quest for intellectualism and academia and thinking I was too smart for my neighborhood or whatever. That wasn't their fault. I mean, you can kind of blame them and go, oh, you didn't, emphasize you didn't highlight the advantages of a small town enough. But anyway, but I get it, you're a guy that's in your 50s and you've been being paid with stolen money and you have tenure. It's hard to fire you. You're in that system, the bureaucratic system. And you see the times changing and that, a lot of people have to face an identity crisis right now. They have to really just go, what is my worth? Today I do my grocery shopping on Tuesdays. And it's my only time I really listen to NPR, But they were talking about this. NPR has recently really been trying to make it seem like they're not political, and it's just hilarious to listen to them, trying to say things that Trump's doing without sounding like they're criticizing him and trying to be very rational about it, but you can kind of hear them just like on the edge of wanting to just scream and cry. But one phrase that I heard come out of my goddamn speaker today was, people are just nervous that this comforting government that they've become used to is going away. And I almost had to stop the van. Somebody said the phrase, comforting government. And I thought, holy shit, the gulf between me and that person. I mean, how could it be wider? The comforting government? I'm thinking about the tyrannical boot of tyranny on your neck. That's comforting? How? Who are these people that got this impression that the government is at all comforting? And then I think of my friend, my drunk texting friend, who buys his steaks with stolen money. And he entertains his friends. And he's convinced himself that he's this wonderful carer of kids, and all these other teachers. I'm telling you, I resent teachers so much. I'm not saying they're all bad, but they're wrapped up in a bad system. If you're in a system where you are guaranteed customers by gunpoint, you, my friend, are not part of a good system. And no matter how much you try to convince yourself that you're the good one, you're not the good one. Because those kids aren't there voluntarily at all. And the curriculums you've been handed have been slowly reformed over years. And you got to do mental gymnastics to convince yourself that it's good. And you will, probably, because you want to keep your job and you want to keep that holy anointed teacher status. The hero. I'm the hero. I'm the one giving these kids something to read that will make them feel good about their lives. No, that's bad. That's not good. That's not good. It isn't good. If you're stuck over in the corner of a room reading a book to deal with your feelings instead of finding a friend, digging a hole, planting a tree, building a fort, surfing, fixing a car, painting a wall, staining a floor, planting a carrot. If you're over there reading a book and escaping and allowing somebody else's ideas to fill your imagination and drive you and make you feel entitled or special, and they're not accountable to you. It's one thing to read your friend's book, because if he says something stupid, you can walk over to his house and go, yeah, this chapter is fucking dumb. And it's hard to block a real friend. It's easy to block on Facebook, but not in real life. I don't know. Where's the accountability, man? I mean, even if you're a teacher, those aren't your kids. You don't have to sleep in their house with them. You don't have to worry about them. You might surreptitiously get some of that stuff. You might care about them, just like you care about your friends. I'm pretty sure some of my teachers cared about me, but not really. I mean, they did kind of, but you graduate and you're gone. You might have good memories, but they don't have to deal with the consequences. They don't have to deal with it. Whatever they taught me that steered me the wrong direction, made it so I didn't create a family. They don't have to deal with that. They didn't have to deal with it. But they took a check, and I was forced to be there. And I had Stockholm Syndrome. And they had Stockholm Syndrome with me. They took the job thinking, oh, it's a good thing. I'm doing a good thing. I'm doing a good thing. I'm Schindler. I'm fighting the system from within the system. You're employing a bunch of people. You're filling their minds. They don't have a choice to be there. You're not fighting it. You're legitimizing it. You're validating it. It's kind of how I feel about posting to Facebook. I'm very hesitant to do it. I still do it. Obviously, you see that I do it. It's a real conflict because it's inherently bad that we're interacting like this online, I think. Listening to strangers who aren't accountable to us. What if I'm steering you wrong? You can't come over and punch me in the face. I mean, you could, but you won't. But if you are communing with a friend, a punchable friend, a friend within your grasp, somebody go, why did you try to convince me to chop off my dick? Or why did you pretend like it was an okay thing? Why did you just let me read this book and not say anything about it? I try to stay neutral. Yeah, that's the worst thing you can probably do is be neutral in the face of evil. I'm Switzerland, man. I don't want to get involved. You don't want to get involved when somebody's part of a system. There's a system that's screwing kids up and waving these flags in their faces and making them think about sexual things and joining up a team and being on a team and choosing to be gay because it's popular to be gay, and look how these celebrities talk about being gay. All this stuff is being done within that system. It doesn't work without compulsory education. That is the first step towards, it's the final step. It's the first and final step towards authoritarianism. You brainwash the kids, and then what do you do? Right now, we just kind of go cross our fingers that nature will mitigate. And no matter what, this generation rebels against that generation, and so on and so forth. And hopefully the pendulum just swings and finds a balancing point that isn't so bad. And that's kind of where I keep my faith, is in that. But communism and socialism are really, really bad. The bureaucracy is really, really bad. And I love that these guys currently are getting rid of it. It seems like they are. Could be all a show. I don't know. Maybe they know that it will never work. But it's going to be hard. You got all these judges. You got all this stuff. You got cowardly people in charge. Everybody goes, well, maybe SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, they'll do it. Really? A bunch of ladies, who see the threats, who see the Tesla dealerships going up in flames. These entitled fuckers aren't going to go quietly. They're violent. They're thrashing about because they don't really know what anything else to do. They've been getting free money. They've been taught to resent and to hate those who work and have things. They don't want to face. My friend doesn't want to face the fact that he might have screwed up a lot of kids, whether he wanted to or not, because the system is designed for that purpose. He's not going to thrash about. There's not a violent bone in this guy's body, but some of the kids that he taught might. They're doing it. They're doing it. I read somewhere where somebody posted all the addresses of everybody that owned a Tesla. And they're the ones calling us Nazis. Here, go get them. Go get these fascists. Go light their cars on fire. Let's intimidate them. Let's make them fear. Why? Because they want to just keep getting the check. They don't want that flow of stolen money to stop. And they're saying the opposite. They're saying, he's stealing it. Elon's stealing it. No, he's giving it back. He's trying to stop the theft. Trump is trying to stop the theft. Getting rid of the NEA, that's trying to stop. Trump's not going nearly as far as I would. I'm telling you that. But he's constrained by these fucking judges and shit. Anyway, I digress. But drunken phone calls, they ain't what they used to be. Thanks for listening.